Welcome to the DJNTV Chill Room Chat, your space to unwind and talk shop. This episode is sponsored by MadeByDJs.com, innovative tools designed specifically by DJs for DJs. DJEventPlanner.com, the industry standard for streamlining your business and booking faster. And DJRequests.com, the easiest way to manage your dance floor's vibe in real time. Support the show by using our Amazon affiliate link at DJNTV.com/Amazon. Now, let's get into the mix.
Welcome, everybody, to a presentation I'm calling 12 Things You Can Do to Build a Great Multi-Op. Multi-op has kind of been one of my messages for many, many years in this industry. I've done a lot of seminars about it. I've written a book about it, running your multi-op. So when Casey said, "Could you present today?" I said, "Sure. Let me talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is building a great multi-op, and a multi-op kind of for keeps, if you will." So step number one, I do think you need to start with your why, and you need to ask yourself, what is my why? What is your why? And let me tell you from experience, it had better be a strong why, because you will be tested many, many times throughout this process. I don't know a multi-op owner who has not wanted to pull his hair out or jump off a building or whatever. And many times they've called me to vent and rant because this is not the easiest way to make a living. If you're looking for a quick buck and an easy way to make a living, I'm sure I don't know, open up a laundromat or something like that. I can think of a lot easier ways. Dealing with the human element of talent can be a fantastic and rewarding and a wonderful, wonderful thing. It can also be a maddening thing all at the same time sometimes. And my experience tells me that the better the DJ, sometimes the more diva-ish they might be. So start with your why. Why do you really want to build a multi-op? Why is this a career path you're taking? And make sure you have a very strong, solid why, because it will be tested many, many times through the years. So that's step one. Start with your why, write it down somewhere because you will have to reference it. Okay. Step two. Before you begin looking for talent, I think you should paint your picture. I think you should define exactly what you are looking for in your next potential DJ. Write down the traits that you're looking for, the habits that you're looking for, aesthetics that you're looking for. Write it all down and reference it from time to time. I'm going to give you my top 5 that I look for in the interview process, and then the top 5 things that I look for when they do their first event. And when I say when they do their first event, I mean as an assistant, because my step-by-step process of becoming an MC for Elite Entertainment is we hire you and you start out as an assistant. We call it music mixer. We call it an assistant. Some people call it a backup, whatever. So your first event would be with me or with Dominic or with Tom or with Jay or with one of our veteran MCs as kind of the backup. So in the interview process, the first thing that I look for is professionalism. Did this person show up? And I'm not even talking about on time, but I'm talking about early. Okay. If we have a 12 o'clock appointment and they show up at 11:50, great. If they show up at noon, okay, that's cutting it pretty close. They show up at 5 after, they've got a black mark against them. They show up at 10 after or 15 after, I will literally greet them in the lobby and say, "Look, I'm sorry, you're late. This is not a career that you could be late for. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to move forward." Literally, I won't even bother interviewing somebody who shows up 10 minutes or more late. Okay. So step number one, professionalism. I look at their physical appearance, okay? I know this can be a controversial topic, and some people have taken me to task on it, but I will say this, and I say it definitively. Clients make their decision on who they want to book on a lot of different factors. There are a number of different factors. One of them is physical appearance, okay? We can't deny we are in the entertainment business. And so as entertainers, we should do everything we can to keep ourselves presentable and in shape and fashionable and everything else. So I want to see somebody walk through my door who has a good physical appearance, good look, hopefully good conditioning, a good sense of fashion. Most people that interview for me don't show up in suits, but usually they show up at least professionally dressed, maybe business casual or something like that. And that's what I'm looking for. I listen for their vocal quality. There's not a lot you can do in the training process with lowering somebody's voice or getting somebody in a deeper register. So from the very beginning, I'm listening for the vocal quality of the person that I'm talking to. Okay. I also believe that you cannot do this job without some level of confidence. There's no way a DJ can expect to open up a dance floor at an event if you lack confidence. If you're a timid person, you are never going to be able to grab the microphone and speak to a room full of people. Okay. So from the very moment I meet a person, I'm judging their confidence level. And the way to do that in the interview process, big step, is eye contact. Is this person able to make eye contact with me and communicate with me confidently? Or are they kind of looking down on the ground? Are they intimidated? Are they timid? Are they soft-spoken? That to me shows a lack of confidence, and that's going to be really hard to overcome. And then finally, I listen for optimism. I would much rather work with optimistic people than pessimistic people. And again, I think optimistic people make better DJs. Think about the last time you were doing an event and 2 or 3 hours in, you were struggling to get people dancing, right? A pessimist will give up on that crowd. A pessimist is going to say, these people are never going to dance. I give up. I'm just going to play background music. I'll give them another cocktail hour at the end. But an optimist is going to keep plugging away and keep telling themselves, I can do this. I can get these people going. I would much rather work with optimists. And plus, they're more fun to hang around. Okay. So that's in the interview process. Now we switch to that first event. Okay. Again, I'm looking for professionalism. Did they show up again early? Step number one, when we show up, if it's a 6 o'clock start and I'm showing up at 4:30, first thing that happens, as I'm sure it is with you, I greet the banquet people and then I load in. Okay. So if you show up 15 minutes late, that might not seem that late, but guess what you missed? You missed helping me load in. So arrival time and professionalism are extremely important. From gig number one, I'm looking for that. I looked for your physical appearance when I interviewed you. Now I'm looking for your gig appearance. I've given you what I expect you to wear and the attire that I expect you to show up in and look in for your gigs. I want to know and I want to see how you look at that gig. Again, very important. Sense of rhythm. I think a sense of rhythm is extremely important for any DJ. I cannot teach somebody how to beat mix if they can't find the 2 and the 4, right? And so when we start playing music at that event, is this person bopping around? Are they even aware that music is playing? Or are they just kind of standing there with no awareness whatsoever that music is playing? Extremely important, okay? Kind of goes along with that, but not necessarily the same thing. I also look for and listen for their love of music. Are they singing along to certain songs? Are they expressing interest in certain songs? Are they giving me suggestions? I love it when a person at their first event ever will say to me, hey, why don't you play blah, blah, blah? Or, you know what, I was thinking maybe this would be good. Great. I might not follow their suggestion. They're brand new, but I like to see that somebody is already thinking. I also ask a lot of questions about somebody's love of music. What's your favorite radio station? Who's your favorite artist? What's the last concert you went to? Those types of questions I usually ask in the setup process and before we begin, just to kind of get that sense. And then finally, also a love of people. I don't think you can do this job unless you really love the public. And I think that that's important. And that comes across when people approach the DJ booth and ask for a request or ask for a song or even just walking around the room. You can tell when somebody loves people or somebody doesn't. You know, there's a difference between somebody who should be working in the back room and somebody who should be working in the front of the room. I think about that a lot in the restaurant business. Most chefs belong in the kitchen. Most front of the house people love people. They love to interact with people. So there is a difference in personality, and I need people who love music and love people. So look for the inexperienced. Okay. Now, I'm not going to say that I've never hired anybody with DJing experience. I have plenty of times, and it's worked out plenty of times. Okay. I'm currently training a gentleman right now by the name of Barry, who came to me with years of experience. Great DJ, great mixer, probably a better mixer than I am. He just doesn't have the MC skills. So I'm not saying I've never hired people with experience, but I would rather, if all things were considered equal, I would rather find somebody who checks off all those boxes: personality, good look, enthusiasm, loves music, but has no DJing experience whatsoever. Now, I know some people get really confused by this. I've actually had a fairly famous DJ speaker kind of call me out about this once. Okay. So before you freak out, okay, I don't hire inexperienced DJs and then stick them on their first event. Okay. Even the best brain surgeon at some point was an inexperienced brain surgeon, right? What did they do? They went to school. They learned. So what goes along with looking for the inexperienced is training these people. Okay. Now, again, this is a much longer and slower process than just finding somebody with experience and plugging them into my schedule. Okay. So why would I go through that longer process of finding somebody who's inexperienced and then training them? I'm glad you asked. God, I hate this format where there's nobody in front of me because I'm so used to giving this content to a room full of people and whatever. Anyway, I'm going to tell myself that got a chuckle. Or maybe even an uproarious laughter. I don't know. So here's going back to inexperience. It is not impossible, but it is more difficult to teach an older dog new tricks rather than somebody who's inexperienced. So that's why I would rather find inexperienced people, and I would rather train them in my image. Okay. Training also creates a certain style. Okay. One of the biggest compliments I get from the bank of people who recommend me is they say, Mike, I can always tell when there's an elite entertainer in my room. I take that as a huge compliment. We have 18 MCs on staff, and yes, every single one of them has their own personality and their own style, but they also all fit in under what you would call the elite entertainment image or style or what have you. Okay. And that's because I've personally trained every single MC. Now, guys like Tom Monago and his brother Chris and Dominic, I trained over 20 years ago. So they've obviously taken my training and run with it and maybe gone in a slightly different direction or whatever. But again, as a company, from the most experienced MC to the newest MC, we all have a very similar style. And that's because of my training program. Okay. And I also think, and I believe this, and I've been shown throughout my years and also some other multi-ops that I know, that training can create loyalty. Now, it's not endless loyalty. You can't train somebody to DJ and then underpay them and treat them like shit, not get them enough gigs and everything else, and expect them to remain loyal to you. But assuming that you treat people well and fairly and you get them a good amount of work, what they're looking for, I think the fact that you taught somebody how to do a career or a part-time career, it wins you a little loyalty with that person. So the first time you have one of those little conflicts, they're not automatically thinking, I got to go out on my own. I got to leave this guy. I can't work for him. Because there's a little bit of quid pro quo, to use a word we heard probably way too much of, or a phrase we heard probably way too much of last year. There's a little bit of quid pro quo when it comes to, I showed you how to do this, and now you're going to work with me. Okay. So if you are going from being a single op to a multi-op, one of the biggest things you need to do is shift the spotlight of your company. So let's start with the name of your company, okay? If you are starting from scratch, if you are just beginning this process today and your vision is to grow a company, my recommendation would be don't give it your name. Now, that's not to say you can't grow a company that is named after you. It worked out pretty good for Walt Disney, right? So I'd be ignorant to say, if you name it after yourself, you can't grow it. Of course you can. But I would say this, I think most people would rather work for a company name than an individual's name. If I had named Elite Entertainment, Mike Walter Entertainment, I'm not sure if everyone who works for me would be so proud about going out under my name, if that makes sense. So if you're starting from scratch or fairly new at this and your company is named after your name and you want to grow a multi-op, I would consider changing that to something else, okay? Take a look at every single marketing tool that you have, website, brochure, business cards, anything that you do. You have to de-emphasize your personal brand and start emphasizing the company brand more. Now, that doesn't mean, pardon me, erase your brand, erase you, because let's face it, most single ops become successful multi-ops because they started with an individual DJ who was getting a ton of referrals and a ton of leads and had a great reputation and was turning down so much work that he or she needed to bring on other DJs, okay? So I'm not saying completely erase your image, but it can no longer be about just you. That's the shift of the spotlight. So as opposed to it's all about me, now maybe it should be all about you here, emphasizing your staff, okay? So every marketing tool that you have, you need to look at, you need to examine, and you need to take if you're the big spotlight, become that spotlight and let your other DJs shine, okay? And that also happens with showcasing, okay? So that's my next step, is showcasing your talent. Most single ops that I know, especially the successful ones, don't do any bridal shows whatsoever or hardly any bridal shows because, again, they're probably good enough and popular enough in their market that they are generating enough leads and enough referrals to fill out their own calendar, okay? That's my experience and what I've come to know about most single ops. But most multi-ops, because you're trying to fill not just your calendar and one or two other DJs, but maybe 7 DJs, maybe 10 DJs, maybe 12 DJs, you have to begin the process of going out and showcasing your talent, okay? So if you do bridal shows, one of my suggestions would be to talk to the producers of these bridal shows and negotiate for stage time. If you pay, for example, $1,000 for a booth, maybe you could pay $2,000 for a booth plus 20 minutes of runway time, okay? Or maybe you can even just barter. Maybe you could say, look, I have my booth. If you're doing a fashion show, could I donate or contribute the sound system and the emceeing for that fashion show in exchange for 20 minutes of showcase time, 20 minutes of runway time? So that's the first suggestion I have for showcasing your talent. Another one, which has been extremely successful in the last number of years for Elite Entertainment, is producing your own bridal show, your own showcase, okay? I shouldn't say bridal show because we don't bring in outside vendors. It's not a bridal show in that I'm selling booths and showcasing other vendors. It's really all about the Elite Entertainment, along with our two sister companies, Elite Films and Elite Digital Images. But it's really, the focus is the DJ Entertainment when we produce our own shows, okay? So if you do bridal shows and you can't negotiate for stage time, maybe right after one or two of your biggest bridal shows, you produce your own showcase, okay? How would you do that? Well, my suggestion is find a banquet hall that you're really tight with, you have a great relationship, negotiate with them for a midweek night room. Hopefully they'll rent it to you for little or no cost, depending on how tight you are with them. Print up invitations, bring them to those bridal shows that you're doing, work the list after those bridal shows, and try to fill up your room. And when I say fill up a room, when we produce our own shows, if we have 25 couples there, 30 couples, that's perfect because our closing rate is so good at these shows, usually over a half, sometimes close to 2/3. We did a bridal show. We did our own showcase. We call them private shows. We did a private show once with 38 couples, and it actually was too many because people were leaving before they had a chance to sign the deal. Some people called us the next day and say, look, we wanted to book you last night, but the line was too long to speak to a sales consultant, so we just left. Fortunately, we close a lot of deals the next day too, but I would rather close them that night. So when we produce our own shows, our ideal list or guest list is 25 couples, tops 30 couples. I'm happy with that. And so again, hopefully you can populate those with maybe some bridal shows, maybe getting some lists from bridal shows, that type of thing. And remember, when you showcase, it's not about you, it's about your staff, okay? So if you've ever had the opportunity to see an elite entertainment private show or bridal show, I'm one of the MCs, and I certainly have a prominent spot, but I give some other prominent spots to a lot of my MCs: Tom Monaco, Dominic Sestito, Jay Thompson, Phil Walsh. I can go on and on. The showcases are about them. They're not just about me, okay? Is that Shay? Shay, you're moving around back there. How am I doing? This is my audience, by the way. My audience is Shay, and I don't know if you can see Donovan down there. Say hello, Donovan. That's the puppy. Anyway, that's who I'm speaking to. I told Kelly I was doing a seminar at 1 o'clock. She goes, "Good, I'm leaving the house." She didn't want to hear me. So it's my puppies. It's my dogs. Okay. Let them own their own gear. I know a lot of multi-op owners that think that that DJs have to use company-owned gear, okay? I don't believe that, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why, okay? First of all, I find that DJs take great pride in the equipment that they are going to own. One of the pushbacks that I've gotten from multi-op owners is, well, if I let them own their own gear, how do I know that they're going to have quality gear? I have never had that problem with anybody on staff. As a matter of fact, most of the DJs on the Elite Entertainment roster own their own gear, and they have newer, better gear than I would probably make as a company standard, because they take such pride in their equipment. They're constantly upgrading. They're constantly keeping their gear in amazing shape. We have some equipment that is company owned and goes out every once in a while. And let me tell you, when it comes back into the office, it is beat up. It is not taken care of. And this is no knock on my staff, but it's just human nature. You take care of and you have great pride in the stuff that you've invested in, much more so than what somebody is lending you or something like that. So I have no problem letting my DJs own their own gear, because I know they're going to take great pride in their gear. Also, when a DJ owns their own gear and they don't have to return it to the warehouse every Monday morning or Sunday night or Saturday night or whatever it is, they can practice at home. And I encourage my DJs, set up your gear in your basement or garage or in a spare bedroom and practice at home. That's impossible to do if they're using company-owned gear that needs to be returned after the weekend, okay? But really, I've saved, I think, the best point about this to the last point, okay? You owning the equipment and making your DJs use company-owned gear is not going to stop them from leaving, okay? If somebody wants to leave your company, believe me, they are not going to go, "Oh, but what kind of equipment am I going to use? Whose gear am I going to use?" First of all, if it's a rival multi-op who is trying to entice this person from leaving, well, they're going to make them the same offer. They're going to say, "Look, if you jump over here, you can use my company-owned gear so you don't have to make the investment." Okay. And if they're thinking about going out on their own, trust me, they can find the money somehow, put it on a charge card. Maybe they've saved up from some of the gigs. You owning the gear is not the stopgate from them leaving your company. So stop thinking it is and start thinking, how are my DJs going to have the best possible gear? My belief is it's if you let them, not only let them, but I encourage my DJs to own their own gear. Okay. Meet regularly. I don't think there's, I train my DJs over a 4-month period and then we start booking them. But that's not the end of training. We continue training through regular meetings. I used to do monthly meetings, but now they're kind of down to like every other month or even quarterly. But on a regular basis, you should be getting together face to face, going over things. Meetings, regular meetings are twofold. They're educational and they're also camaraderie. It's a great way to kind of build that bond of all your DJs coming together. I love when our meetings usually start 10, 15 minutes late, because everybody's just kind of sitting around telling stories, making jokes, talking about their weekends and telling, this happened at my event, that type of thing. So I love having our staff meetings. Now, during this coronavirus, you can't do that, right? So we've already done one of these. I'll probably do another this week. use Zoom, use some of these online platforms. We had a staff meeting last week. It was phenomenal. An hour of, again, it was educational. I came with a couple of, points that I wanted to get to and a couple of things I wanted takeaways. Dominic had a great idea about, doing some interviews on Facebook. So he spoke for a little while. I asked Tom Monaco to speak for a little while, but then it was also just a social thing. We went around the horn. How's everybody doing? Nobody's tested positive, right? Who's working? Who's not working? Who's working from home? That type of thing. It was a great hour. By the way, I don't know why I didn't think of this. Joe Bund was the one that recommended this to me. And I got to turn my phone over. People are blowing me up. I don't know why I'm even looking at it. Joe Bund recommended this to me. I don't know why I hadn't thought about it. Casey mentioned on the introduction, I've been doing a podcast with Joe Bund. Hopefully some of you are listeners. I've been doing a podcast for, can you believe, over 3 years? Joe and I have been doing this. We just dropped episode 170, and we've been doing it every single week for over 3 years. Unbelievable. Anyway, Joe often learns from me. As a matter of fact, we've made a joke that I personally, I feel the podcast is just my consulting Joe and giving him suggestions. So finally, after 3+ years, I got to take away from you, Joe. Finally. And I only tell that joke because you mentioned my old picture in your opening seminar this morning. Joe's not, well, who am I kidding? Joe's not even online. He's got better things to do today. Meet regularly. Okay. This is critical. Again, going back to assuming that you are a single op who is now growing into a multi-op, you undoubtedly, I would hope, have some great relationships with people in your industry, right? Some banquet people who recommend you, maybe some photographers, videographers, whomever, okay? I'm sure you have some great relationships. You need to inform those people that you are now bringing in other DJs, that you are now training other DJs. This goes back to the training process. If you inform them and say, hey, by the way, they're going to be very similar to me. I'm training them in my style and my approach, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to see a lot of similarities. That will cushion the blow. But expect resistance, okay? You're going to hear it. I've heard it I still hear it to this day when I send a new DJ into a banquet hall that loves 15 of our DJs, and they'll go, hey, what do I have? One of your new guys coming up next week? Yeah, you do. Do you not trust me by this point that I'm going to, send in nothing but, qualified talent? But just expect resistance. They're used to you, or they're used to dealing with you, maybe plus one other guy or gal, and now you're growing your company. So just keep them informed and expect resistance. The best time to inform them is the week or two before one of your newer DJs is going to be in their room. So, I'm always looking for reasons to pick up the phone or send an email or whatever to people we have a tight relationship with. This is a great one. If you have one of your newer DJs working in one of your house accounts, a place that recommends you, get in touch with them a couple weeks in advance. Hey, by the way, want to let you know at Susie Smith's wedding on, I guess I got to make up a date in October because who knows the next time we're going to be working. But at Susie Smith's wedding coming up in a couple of weeks, my new DJ Barry is going to be in there. Hope you have a chance to watch him a little bit. I think you'll agree with me. He's an awesome MC, great addition to our staff, blah, blah, blah. Keep them informed, okay? And get your ego ready because there is a chance, and this does happens with me all the time, and it happens with other multi-ops that I know. There is a chance that some of your best relationships are going to start recommending some of your other DJs, okay? The English Manor, right down the road from me. I love them in there. Play in there all the time. I'm literally 10 minutes away from that location. Love it. They recommend Elite, and they say, by the way, if you can get Tom Monaco, get him, okay? That's a little bit of a blow to my ego, okay? But I've learned how to deal with it. There are a couple of things that I'll go over with you in a minute about how to handle things like that. But get your ego ready because at first they resisted. At first they were like, oh, what do you mean you're growing your company and I got to deal? I'm so used to dealing with you. But if they see one of your DJs rock their ballroom, they might start pushing that person over you. Not to say that they're going to talk bad about you, but they might, like I said, they might say, hey, make sure you get Elite Entertainment, but ask for Tom. He's great. Okay. So get your ego ready for that. Okay. Speaking of ego, As you grow from a single op or from a smaller company to a multi-op, you need to check your ego, okay? It is going to, from time to time, take a little bit bruising, okay? I Googled ego image and I found this. Isn't this a great image? I pulled this off the internet somewhere, so I don't know who to give it credit for, but get the E out of the way and you're ready to go. I love that image, but you need to be ready for the fact that this is no longer about you, okay? And harsh reality here, I think that there are some single ops, some, not saying all, but some single ops who don't grow their company to any size because they psychologically, deep down, they could never admit this, but somewhere in their psyche, they could never handle the ego blow of having a DJ on staff who's more popular or who gets more referrals or is booked more often. They just couldn't handle it, okay? And I think that that's a shame because I've got a lot of great DJs on staff. Some would say better than me, and I'm fine with that. I can handle that. My ego, I've gotten my ego out of the way to the point where I'm fully aware that there are some crowds and some families that prefer Dominic Sestito over me, prefer Tom Monaco, prefer Jake Thompson. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with it for a number of different reasons. Number one, Elite Entertainment still makes the money. Whether a client books me or one of our DJs, Elite still makes the money, okay? And the few times when my ego does take a kind of a bruising about it, here's what I remind myself. I found that DJ. I trained that DJ. I nurtured that DJ, okay? So if your ego starts getting rocked a little bit by, as you grow your company, all of a sudden one of these guys that you trained and taught, and all of a sudden they're getting more referrals than maybe you are. People are calling going, hey, we saw you at an event, and you're used to going, it's going to be, and you go, really, who'd you see? And they go, Chris Monaco. And you go, oh, okay. If you need to go back to these, I found that DJ, I trained that DJ, I nurtured that DJ. Use those mantras as a way to kind of prop up your own ego, okay? Emphasize reviews. I think websites like The Knot and Wedding Wire are critical to success in our industry nowadays, okay? I call them the Yelp of the wedding industry, the Yelp of the event industry. And just like most millennials won't go to dinner without checking the restaurant's rating on Yelp, most millennials are not going to book a service for their wedding without reading some reviews, okay? So you need to, and this goes for whether you're a single op or a multi-op, you need to emphasize reviews nowadays, okay? Here's the thing about multi-ops. There's power in numbers, okay? So if you do 50 events a year, even if you get 100% of your clients reviewing you, you're capped at 50. If you do 500 events a year, even if you get 50% of those to review you, you've gotten 250. So there's power in numbers. And when you look at a site like Wedding Wire and you see companies or names that have 100 reviews or 80 reviews or 230 reviews, and then you see an Elite Entertainment, which has 1,900 and I think it was 69 or 1,970, where, man, if it wasn't for coronavirus, we would have passed 2,000 already. One more reason to hate this freaking virus. We would have passed 2,000 already. But anyway, we're close. We're closing in on it. As soon as we can start doing events again, we'll pass it. But there's power in numbers when it comes to reviews, okay? People get impressed by that. Also, reviews will help sell the individual DJ. There's a lot of things you need to get in place to start selling your staff. Specific reviews for specific DJs is a big part of it. If you go on the Elite Entertainment website and you look at our staff page, we basically take each DJ's review and we take a screenshot and we upload it onto their section in our website. So if you are looking, for example, at Phil Walsh, if you're a client and you're considering Phil Walsh, when you go to his section on our website, you're not seeing all the Wedding Wire reviews. You're only seeing reviews for Phil Walsh. And if you do that with your staff, those reviews are going to help you sell your individual DJs, okay? The 50% challenge is simply this. I believe anyone in this industry, anyone in the wedding industry, not just the DJ industry, but the wedding industry, you should be able to get a minimum of 50% of your clients giving you a positive review after their event is over, Okay. There's a number of different strategies I have. I'm not going to get into all of those right now. I've actually done a number of seminars about how to generate more reviews. So go seek those out if you want specifics. But my bold statement to anyone listening, if you did look at how many events you did last year, divide it by a half. If you didn't get at least that many client reviews, you're not really taking it seriously. Roll up your sleeve, come up with some strategies. You can get 50%. By the way, last year, I got 80%. Okay. So 50%, I do believe is a minimum. If you work hard at it, you should far exceed 50%. So again, think about how many weddings you did as a company. If you got half that many as reviews, wouldn't that be a pretty positive selling point for your company? I believe it would. Okay. And then finally, and this is not universal, okay? I know some multi-op owners that as soon as they got to the point financially in their life that they could stop DJing on the weekends, they did, and they never looked back, okay? So this is not a universal statement to make. But for me personally, and for a lot of multi-op owners I know, don't stop performing. I did not get into this industry to run a company. Okay, I look at running a multi-op as my day job. That's my Monday through Friday day job. My weekend job is DJing. Okay, and I love DJing. There are times, like I said at the start of this show, where running a multi-op is a pain in the ass, dealing with DJs and dealing with talent and dealing with clients and everything else. So that's why you need to start with that powerful why, because it will be tested, okay? So my Monday through Friday job, sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it, sometimes I could do without it. I've actually envisioned a future where somebody else owns Elite Entertainment and I'm just one of their DJs, okay? Because I missed DJing. I started really cutting back on the number of jobs I was taking probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I think the least or fewest, what should it be? The least number of jobs I did or the fewest jobs I did? I'm going to go with least number or fewest. I'm going to go with fewest. I think the fewest events I ever did was 22 events one year. I actually did more bridal shows that year than I did weddings. And you know what the problem was? I missed it. Because see, think about it. If you do 22 events in a year, that means the majority of weekends you didn't work. So that means the majority of Saturday nights I wasn't out there. The majority of Monday mornings, I didn't have any war stories. And that's one of the things I missed about it. I would talk to all my DJs on Monday morning. How was your weekend? Because I talked to everybody for payroll. How did things go? Blah, blah, blah. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And I didn't have any war stories. More than half of those weekends, I didn't have any war stories. And so I just found I really missed DJing. I've opened up my calendar a lot since then. Last year, I think I did about 80 events, and I found myself loving my job a lot more because I'm back to kind of doing what I really love. And the reason I got into this industry is I like to entertain. Dave, who spoke before me, talks about being an extrovert. I'm an extrovert. I admit to that fully. I need the positive reinforcement that comes along with DJing. You know, one of my day jobs is writing payroll. When I'm done on Mondays, calculating payroll and printing out checks, nobody walks in my office and goes, Mike, that was the best payroll ever. I'm so happy, my paycheck. Nobody does. It's never happened in the history of my company. But that happens to me every Saturday night, or it used to before coronavirus. Every wedding, almost every wedding, brides, grooms, guests at the wedding, people who don't even know me would come up and shake my hands. Think about how long ago that was, and tell me what an awesome job I did. Yes, my ego is so weak that it needs that kind of positive reinforcement. So if you are of the mindset that you got into this business because you love DJing, I would encourage you, don't stop performing. You can cut back a little bit, give yourself a little sanity time, especially because the work that you're doing during the week is probably going to increase. So you don't want to burn out, but I wouldn't cut back completely because this is really what you got into the business for. Okay. I'm going to leave you with one last point. I saw this saying years and years ago, and I think it's great for a lot of things in life, but specifically for DJing, for growing your multi-op. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Okay. And I think that's the case with multi-ops. If you just want to make a quick buck in this business, be a great single op, charge a lot of money, and make your money while you still can, while you're still young enough. If you want to go far, build an organization and go together. That's my advice. So.